Welcome to episode number 2. Thanks for stopping by. If this is your second week with me, I really appreciate it. I was blown away by everyone's responses after week 1. I had so many great comments, so much great feedback. And upon posting this, I'd love to hear from you. So if you like what I'm posting, go ahead and give me a follow, give me a like, and reach out. Let me know what you think. This was a big week for us. We covered a lot of areas. We covered leadership, nutrition, sports performance, and we had a couple awesome guests, including the Texas Rangers dietitian and a former NFL speed coach. I'm excited to share with you all again, so let's get to it. One of the big ideas that we covered this week is the fact that there are no such thing as bad teams, just bad leaders. In our reading from Extreme Ownership this week, it went over Navy SEALs training. And in the training, there was 6 teams and they're performing different boat races. And I'm sure you've seen some of the videos that the Navy SEALs do in training, and it's pretty intense. And so all the groups would go after each other, test after test after test after test. And if you won, you would get to rest while all the other groups performed a different test again. And so basically, unless you won, you wouldn't get a rest. And there was boat 6 and boat 2, and boat 6 was killing it every single time. And their leader was doing awesome, and he was really motivating their guys. But boat 2 was losing every single race. And so what the Navy SEAL commanders did was they actually switched the leaders from boat 6 and boat 2, and then they put them through a test again. And guess what happened? The guys who were doing awful in boat 2, all of a sudden with this new leader, they actually ended up winning the next race and then a series of races after this. And the guys who are killing it in boat 6 with the leader from boat 2 who came across, they actually came in second to boat 6 time after time. And it's a really awesome idea to think about, just like the inspiration we get from those who lead us. A couple examples I have thought in the sports field of this are both Nick Nurse and Steve Kerr, who came onto new teams and took them to new heights. They both won championships in the first year with new teams. And if we have an individual who the whole team can rally behind and who can empower everyone to do their absolute best, your teams perform at your highest level. So, challenge for you. Think about in your own situation with your own team. Are you a bad leader? Are you a good leader? And how does your leadership reflect what your team does? The awesome guest we had on this week was Jeremy Boone. Jeremy is a former NFL speed coach, and he's currently a performance consultant for a number of different professional organizations and teams. In addition, he has performed a TED Talk, and wherever he goes, he typically talks about leadership and what it takes to be a better leader. One of the big ideas he pushed upon us is that leadership is a transfer of energy. How are you as a leader bringing energy to those who follow you? And one of the big questions he asked us is, why do people follow you? And us particular as strength and conditioning coaches, why do your athletes follow you? It's got to be more than just the performance benefits you give to them. It can't just be the fact that they hit a all-time PR on a squat, deadlift, or something like that. There's got to be more than that. You have to push them. You have to touch them as a person. And so what I did is I actually texted a number of my former athletes, and I'm going to share a couple of their responses with you guys. My athletes responded, "I follow you as a coach because you show me that you believe in me, and I see that you care. That is something that I can say not many coaches have done for me. I also see that you are constantly striving to be better, and that makes me want to keep getting better too. I believe in what you say because you don't tell me just to do things. You always explain to me why and make sure I understand. There is also a type of confidence that you have which I think comes from hard work and a passion for what you do." Another one told me, "I always knew that every practice or game I was going to have to leave it all out there. I trusted you from the start to push me as hard as I could and make sure I was growing as an athlete and a person every day. Also, when learning new stuff, you pushed me, but still made it okay to make some mistakes." I challenge you to ask yourself, why do people follow you? And maybe even reach out to some of the people that you lead and see what they have to say. It can definitely be a humbling experience, but it does help us look introspectively and grow as a leader. awesome guest we had on was Stephanie Vasquez. Stephanie is the registered dietitian for the Texas Rangers. She works with some of the best athletes in the world. However, she didn't come on and just tell us about nutrition periodization, the X's and O's, what percentage of protein you need, things like that. The biggest thing I took away from our whole conversation was whenever working with a new athlete, she just tried to establish a relationship with them, try to get to know them as a person. And from that, she would actually then be able to educate the athlete about decisions that should be made. And this really pushed me to think about myself because I know so many times when I meet new athletes, I'm like, hey, we're going to get this done, we're going to get this done, hey, you need to get this done. But instead of us pushing the athletes and us driving them, for example, stepping back, asking them, hey, what do you want to learn from this situation? What's most interesting to you? We can actually get them to get on board with the motivation process and hopefully intrinsically motivate them to do better. Vertical jump is the most sought after skill in basketball sports performance. However, if we look at the numbers of an actual game, vertical jump only comprises roughly 4% of the total game. The rest of the game, well, an average basketball player who plays a full game runs 3 miles per game, and 40% of the movements are lateral, 30% are sprinting, 30% are walking. 75% of the game is spent at 85% of maximum heart rate, and 15% of the game is spent at 95% of maximum heart rate. Basically, there's very little amounts of times in basketball where an athlete's going all out maximal explosiveness. However, most of us as sports performance trainers spend a lot of time working on that high, super fast, explosive capabilities of athletes. And I definitely have been very guilty of this in the past. Most of the athletes I work with come to me and we're like, hey, let's get more horsepower in this engine. Let's get you jumping higher than ever. And I've seen really great results with it. However, anecdotally, I've definitely had a lot of athletes who, towards the end of the games, they kind of level off and they're not jumping as explosively, they're not performing as well. And so one of the areas that we covered this week was energy system training. Coach Bealey is a genius. He's got a couple different areas where he really excels in this. And one of the ideas he brought to us was training in heart rate ranges. And typically when you think of heart rate ranges, you think of those old posters at gyms where they're like, hey, if you train at this percent, you're burning fat, and this percent, you're burning carbs. However, as applied to a sports performance athlete, training in ranges would be, let's say we're training between 60 and 75% of our heart rate max. Go all out in whatever exercise form we choose, whether that would be sprinting, biking, rowing, and they'll go as hard as they possibly can until they hit 75% of heart rate max. Then they would just relax, they would stand still and let their heart rate drop till it hits the bottom number, which in this case is 60%, and then they go all out again. So what this does is it self-regulates your athletes. The better in shape you are, the more work you do. The less in shape you are, you're not going to get as much work done. However, both athletes would do this for the same amount of time. And what this can do over time is lead to improved heart rate recovery, so your athletes are able to perform explosively more often, and it's going to help a lot with recovery post-workout because it's going to lower your resting heart rate. And so this week, I actually tried this out with one of my buddies, a former Iowa lineman, Ty Malone, and this is what he had to say.
It sucked. It definitely wasn't fun, but you can definitely tell once you get your heart rate up to that 170, 180 mark, you get that full recovery, and then you can hit it hard again for about 90 seconds, which is really good for a hard workout.
I also was really challenged by the workout. Even though we were working out together, because we had different recovery rates, our workouts didn't look the same. Thank you so much for checking out episode number 2. If you liked what you saw, please hit the subscribe button. I'll be releasing a new episode every single week. Also, please give me some feedback. Let me know what you thought. I appreciate you guys sticking with me again, and I'm going to leave you with a final quote. Look forward to seeing you again next week.